A woman in Middlesbrough is backing a new campaign seeking to legalise cannabis for medicinal use in the UK. Alison Turner, who suffers from multiple sclerosis, believes the drug supports her and fellow MS sufferers. The 63-year-old travels to Amsterdam regularly to take cannabis and feels it should be available legally in the UK. She's told BBC Tees how it helps her.
It is helpful. I mean, I used to get quite a lot of pain in my legs when I first got MS, and the cannabis stopped it. As long as I keep it under control, I've managed it all these last 20 years. I'm still walking, not very well, I admit. I think it's bonkers for it to be illegal.
Data drawn from the National Crime Survey indicates there are 1 million people who use the drug for medicinal purposes. The Home Office has said there are no plans to decriminalise cannabis, and it's the clear scientific and medical evidence that it's a harmful drug which can damage people's mental and physical health. Peter Carroll is leading the campaign for medicinal cannabis.
If you're a patient in Holland, you go to see your doctor and they prescribe a substance, it happens to be called Bedrocan, but it's basically just herbal cannabis, but grown to a proper regulated standard. So it is the actual herbal cannabis that we're recommending should be made available on prescription for people who need it for medical reasons.
We're going to be continuing the conversation that you've heard on breakfast this morning about cannabis. It's an illegal drug, but of course, 1 million people take it in the UK for medicinal reasons. So we'll discuss that later. But first, a new campaign calling for medicinal cannabis to be legalised in Britain has been launched. Supporters from End Our Pain say the move would help more than an estimated 1 million people who regularly use cannabis for medical reasons. Cannabis products are prohibited in the UK under the Misuse of Drugs Act, with criminal penalties for possession and supply. Critics of the campaign point out there's currently no empirical evidence that medical cannabis really works, and that the drug poses a real risk of psychosis and long-term effects on young brains. But supporters say it's morally wrong and cruel to deny patients access to a medicine that they claim could help them ease their pain. Let's talk first of all to John Holliday, who's founder of the Teesside Cannabis Club. John, welcome to you.
Good morning.
So tell me about your situation, John.
Basically, I started taking medicinal cannabis to treat a stomach condition that first arose when I was around 15 to 16-year-old. I was told by my family doctor to perhaps, instead of taking the prescribed medication that was making me ill at the time, to try and take an alternative route. They told me that they couldn't tell me where to necessarily receive the cannabis or get the cannabis from, but it might be a route that might be worthwhile taking. At the age of 17, I experimented with smoking cannabis and found that it did create quite a good relief and quite fast acting relief just by smoking it, but I never actually researched it any further until years later when another bout of illness hit me when I was 25 and I was in the middle of researching cannabis oil to help my father, who was suffering with lung cancer at the time.
So just to be clear, John, you were told by your GP at the age of 17?
My family GP that had actually known me since I was a baby, right up until the age of, I think I left that surgery when I was 19 years old, so up until that age, I'd been under the same doctor for all those years.
And were you surprised when he told you to try it?
I was completely surprised. I actually explained to him that I was brought up by my grandparents and that I didn't have access to cannabis. I didn't know where to have access to cannabis. And he was very forthcoming and explaining to me that there was a lot of, not official research, but a lot of talk about it being able to help my condition with my stomach. And that was like 15 years ago.
Yeah, and did it help with your stomach?
It did. It helped massively with my stomach, but unfortunately I didn't continue using cannabis to treat my stomach from the age of 17, and at the age of 25 I was hospitalised over the period of 3 years, from the age of 25 to 28, 9 times in total. I lost 4.5 stone in 6 weeks to start with. The doctors didn't know what was wrong with me. I wasn't able to keep food down. I was passing blood quite a lot. I was just in a bad way. The doctors had me on a mix of medications, prescribed drugs, a mix of opiates, anti-sickness tablets, basically something to counteract all the side effects of the other medication that were giving me to mask the pain, but nothing to actually treat what was causing the illness in the first place.
Because the thing, John, is, I mean, obviously, cannabis is illegal for good reason, isn't it?
Well, I think that's down to the person that you speak to. I don't feel that cannabis should be illegal. Not just in a medicinal sense, but in a recreational level either, because I feel that...
But there is strong evidence to show it's addictive and will cause problems.
I think that, once again, the research needs to be looked at in more of an unbiased view. I think if we wanted to cherry-pick our facts, we could both stand here and say plenty of research that would point in both our fields and give us both our kinds of argument that we want to put across. But the real research needs to be done with the community, with the actual patients that have spent. I know patients that have been using cannabis medicinally for over 40 years. I've known several cancer patients that currently use it. Debbie Watkinson, who sadly passed away last December, she was a palliative care nurse who resorted to use cannabis in her final stages of cancer, her own personal cancer battle. She found that gave a massive...
All right, John, stay on the line. I want to hear what you've got to say, but I also want to introduce you to a GP who's on the other line who would never dream of prescribing cannabis. So we'll talk to her in just a moment. So we're just in the middle of a conversation about cannabis. Nearly 1 million people in the UK currently take cannabis for medicinal reasons. A new campaign has started calling for medical cannabis to be legalised in this country. We've got John on the line, who was told by his GP at the age of 17 to give it a go to help with his condition. On the other line, I've got Dr. Julie Birch, Gisborough GP, and on the Cleveland Local Medical Committee is the chairman. Dr. Birch, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Would you ever consider prescribing or telling somebody to use cannabis?
No, I've never told anyone to take it, although I do know, when patients, have been taking it themselves. As for prescribing it, the answer is also a no. There is a legal form of cannabis called Sativex, which is a drug that can be prescribed. It's what's called a Class B drug, so that's quite heavily controlled. But I know it can be used sort of by specialist consultants when they feel that all other avenues of sort of standard medicines have been explored, and then it is sometimes prescribed, particularly, say, patients with multiple sclerosis who can get severe pain. I think there is some anecdotal evidence that it can help them. But I don't think it's something that, generally as a GP I would consider.
But when you see people in pain, and presumably people have asked you for this in the past, I mean, it must be really difficult not to think about giving them that.
Well, I've never been asked to prescribe cannabis. As I say, I've been aware when patients have decided to go and try it. It's not a drug at the moment that GPs would use. As John actually said, there isn't I think you said there isn't any evidence at the moment, any clear medical evidence. And as doctors, we always, prescribe using what's called evidence-based medicine. So, say if NICE, the Institute of Clinical Excellence, if they had a look at it and could show that there were lots of drug trials showing that it was a drug that worked and that the benefits outweighed the risks, then I think that might change in the future. But at the moment, that's not the case. So as I say, this drug that is available is only used in very sort of specialist situations.
But there is a sort of inconsistency here, Dr. Birch, isn't there? Because, if we're talking about concern about these things being addictive, morphine is prescribed, isn't it? And that is an addictive drug.
Well, that's right. I mean, lots of drugs have risks and side effects, obviously addiction being one of them. And when a doctor uses a drug, we have to think about the benefits that we want to get for that drug for that patient, and we have to weigh that up against the risks. So clearly someone with cancer who's in severe pain, then it makes sense to prescribe them morphine at the doses that are going to be helpful. When I've got someone with short-term pain that may settle quite quickly, you have to make that decision. You have to sort of think, well, I don't want to give this for too long because I don't want them to get addicted to something. So you may try to wean them off it quite quickly. So all drugs have side effects and risks, but that's always what we're taking into consideration.
Well, John is still listening in on the other line. Do you believe, John, it has done you any harm?
I personally feel that I'm better off in the position of taking cannabis oil when I do have a flare-up than I was taking the 8 prescription drugs, especially after taking the anti-sickness tablet for around 18 months and stopping taking it because of restarting the cannabis treatment. I received a letter 3 years after that from my GP advising me to immediately stop taking the anti-sickness tablet as it had since found that it caused cancer. So once again, I feel that we're all guinea pigs. We're told by our doctors to take certain drugs because we thought it will help us. And once again, we are the pigs, we are the cows. I don't see why taking a natural extract from a plant is going to be any more harmful for me than taking anything prescribed from a doctor.
John, are you addicted though, John?
No, I'm not addicted. At the end of the day, I only use it medicinally when I need to use it. I don't choose to drink, so I do take recreational smoke as well, but there's definitely no addiction level.
And it hasn't created any mental health issues?
No, once again, I would say that I've read the studies in the Daily Mail, obviously, that they like to publish all the time, but there's a lot of conflicting reports out there, there's a lot of studies out there. I believe that people that are going to develop mental health issues are already going to develop the mental health issues, and I would be interested to see the analysis of these studies and see if caffeine and other factors were taken into account in these studies and other drugs maybe that were taken, not just cannabis, because I know a lot of young people don't just take cannabis, they take a lot of other drugs, and I think this would have a lot more serious impact on the mental health than cannabis would.
OK. John, thank you for that. Finally, Dr. Julie Birch then, would you be in favour of decriminalising it?
No, I'm not at the moment. I have seen people who definitely addicted to cannabis, and I've got a personal experience of a patient of mine who definitely developed schizophrenia, and the cause was using cannabis. I know that's just a small amount, and there's probably lots of people who do take it quite safely, but the risks are clearly there, and I think it can lead to other drug taking. So personally, my view is that cannabis should remain, as it is as an illegal drug.
Dr. Julie Birch, thank you. Julie is a GP in Gisborough and is a member of, he's chairman of the Cleveland Local Medical Committee. And John Holliday, on the other line there, founded the Teesside Cannabis Club. So there is this campaign then calling for medicinal cannabis to be legalised in Britain. There is some evidence to show, though, that it can lead to long-term effects, particularly on young brains. Busy old morning on the phones, though. Instant reaction to all the things we're talking about this morning. And Adam is taking your calls.
Yeah, I've got a lot of comments to get through here. John in Hartlepool got in touch regarding the cannabis topic.
Yep.
And he said doctors currently prescribe morphine every single day. Morphine is an opiate. Opium is a Class A drug, while cannabis is a Class B drug. Can't see any problems if doctors prescribe cannabis.
A new campaign is calling for cannabis to be legalised in the UK for medicinal use. A group called End Our Pain says that it would help an estimated 1 million people in the country who regularly use cannabis for medical reasons. John Holliday is founder of the Teesside Cannabis Club. He says he began using it medicinally for stomach problems on advice from his GP when he was a teenager.
I personally feel that I'm better off in the position of taking cannabis oil when I do have a flare-up than I was taking the 8 prescription drugs, especially after taking the anti-sickness tablet for around 18 months and stopping taking it because of restarting the cannabis treatment.
The Home Office has said there are no plans to decriminalise cannabis and that the negative impacts it can have on mental and physical health are well documented. Gisborough GP Julie Birch says there isn't enough evidence to suggest that cannabis would work better than alternatives which are already available.
As doctors, we always, prescribe using what's called evidence-based medicine. So, say if NICE, the Institute of Clinical Excellence, if they had a look at it and could show that there were lots of drug trials showing that it was a drug that worked and that the benefits outweighed the risks, then I think that might change in the future. But at the moment, that's not the case.
Busy old morning this morning, Adam.
It's been flat out. It's been very busy.
Very busy indeed. So just the way we like it. So comments coming in on all the things we're talking about. So let's begin with cannabis then. There is this campaign to get it decriminalised.
There certainly is, and we've had quite a lot of comments in about this morning. We've got one from Graham. He said, my sister has MS. Smoking cannabis works for her. It relaxes the muscles and provides pain relief. So he's all for legalisation. We also had an anonymous text which says, normal painkillers can be addictive. So if cannabis helps, judge the person, then say yes or no. And we spend fortunes for methadone for heroin users whose pain is self-afflicted, as opposed to the people who are ill and cannabis could be their last resort for pain relief.
Yeah, 1 million people as we speak are probably taking cannabis for medicinal reasons.
A Teesside man who says he was advised to use cannabis by his doctor is backing a UK-wide campaign for the drug to be legalised for medicinal use. A group called End Our Pain says that it would help an estimated 1 million people in the country who regularly use cannabis for medical reasons. The government says there's clear scientific and medical evidence that it's a harmful drug which can damage people's mental and physical health. But John Holliday, the founder of the Teesside Cannabis Club, says it's been more helpful than harmful in treating his stomach condition.
I don't see why taking a natural extract from a plant is going to be any more harmful for me than taking anything prescribed. I only use it medicinally when I need to use it. I don't choose to drink, so I do take recreational smoke as well, but there's definitely no addiction level.
Dr. Julie Birch is a GP in Gisborough. She says people should be in no doubt that cannabis is illegal because of the dangers it can cause.
I have seen people who definitely addicted to cannabis, and I've got a personal experience of a patient of mine who definitely developed schizophrenia, and the cause was using cannabis. I know that's just a small amount, and there's probably lots of people who do take it quite safely, but the risks are clearly there.